let's go ahead and kick this off and see if we can kind of knock out everything that's gone on over the past couple weeks and maybe talk about some alpha and stuff within the next 30 minutes or so. So on the governance side, a little bit of housekeeping. I think since the last time we had this call, we passed the Dinero allocation settlement with Synonym, and the budget proposal for the next 6 months passed. So thanks everybody for participating in both of those votes. On the Synonym side, this is another part of our sort of like efforts to shore up some of the outstanding agreements we have with some people. I think, our main goal is to figure out how we can bet bigger on ourselves, because obviously we're bullish on ourselves. And the more tokens we can get back from teams who are not necessarily hostile, but are no longer like aligned with the interests of Dinero, the more of those tokens we can get back, the better. And so I don't know if there's really have the funds been sent over, Funky? I know like basically the way it worked, and some people were asking about it, was that they didn't have to send any Dinero token back. We were basically buying back vests that had not been sent to them, but I don't know if we sent over the total amount yet.
Yeah, so sorry if it's a bit loud here. So the situation is that they had a vest which was going to end at the end of next year, and essentially we bought out the remainder of that vest, and they have about 7 million Dinero out of about 43 or total vest that they did receive, and that will be distributed to certain holders over 8 months. Yeah.
Cool. So that's that shored up, which is good. More token for us, more token for Treasury, etc. So that'll be good going into the future, and we don't have this like uncertainty hanging over like a significant portion of token supply by a project we only work with in like a limited capacity. So we'll let Synonym keep doing their thing, and we'll keep doing ours. On the other proposal, I mentioned the compensation one. That's just your very typical comp proposal. So thanks everybody for approving that. We'll keep building and keep updating everybody over the next 6 months, as we always do. On the partnership front and on the comms front, we've had quite a few things. Let's see, where do I want to start on this? I want to make sure we don't miss anything. Did we, on the last call, does anybody remember, did we talk about the Blast Gold support on Hidden Hand? I can't remember. Okay, so we talked about that. So moving forward then, a couple of things that went out between now and then. The big one is we had some communications from Superposition, which is an Arbitrum layer 3. They announced that they are going to be using Orbeth. So this is one of the early chains kind of like making a commitment to integrate Orbeth, which is great. One of the things like that we want to do with these like bigger branded LSTs is make sure that if they are part of a bigger ecosystem, that they are integrated as widely as they can be, and we don't want them to just exist on the main hub, right? Like we want to be able to expand them across all of the various chains that are aligned with the main chain that they're on. So that's the plan with Orbeth, and having Superposition announced quite early that they're going to be embracing Orbeth is great. Outside of that, on the branded LST front, we also had a huge announcement yesterday, which is ZK ETH, which will be launching actually very, very soon on ZK Sync Era mainnet, which is the main hub. And then they have the Elastic chain built around that, which will be expanding ZK ETH too. So what'll be pretty cool about ZK ETH is, one, it's launching soon, but two, we already have like a lot of the processes underway to get liquidity bootstrapped on ZK Sync Era, and Maverick will be the home of that liquidity. I think probably in the near future we'll share the like incentive programs and what things are going to look like there. We also have been working with their sort of Ignite program to try to get a proposal through where we could participate in the Ignite incentives campaign, where basically, how does it work, Derek? I don't know. You know better than me. How does Ignite work?
They're pretty much just incentivizing liquidity on ZK
Nice.
Sync, and
Okay.
then
Cool. So it's pretty basic, just like the Arbitrum incentives programs that they have, just like the ones that OP has, etc. So we'll be working to kind of get incentives on ZK Sync as soon as we can.
the main visions for the ZK Ignite
Yeah,
program.
I think they have a more far along process for navigating between the various Elastic chains. Either way, competition like this is good for us because it means we can kind of try to launch branded LSTs on all of these various hubs, expand them out to all of the chains built within those hubs. And it is cool whenever we could do something like ZKETH or something like Orbeth, which kind of unites an entire ecosystem behind one branded LST, because that makes it easier for us to promote, build liquidity around, etc. Whenever it's just one big branded LST rather than, like doing one for every Arbit chain or Orbit chain, doing one for every ZK Sync chain, etc. So we'll keep leaning into that strategy as much as we can, and we'll roll them out as people have demand for them. The other thing we had some comms around is, I guess, the Orbit or our bit Dinero listing today. So keep an eye out on more of those in the future as we keep working on our sort of centralized exchange strategy. I think this is a
Yeah, I
good.
can talk about that a
Yeah,
bit.
go ahead.
Um, so, like a lot of you guys know that we had troubles getting on the centralized exchanges because obviously the first token was rebasing, the second token, everyone was locked, so there was no volume, there was no circulating supply because everyone opted into like locking their token, so it was very hard to get a centralized exchange to list it. The new tokenomics are like set up in a way where we can get sex listings. And with like IPX ETH around the corner, you're going to start to see some of the centralized exchanges we started to talk to list. Today, obviously, was Ourbit, which is like a growing exchange from the old Huobi guys. Huobi co-founder, I think, and some other people launched this new one this cycle. And some other centralized exchanges are in the pipeline now getting live. So I think I talked to some people, it's good to see some of the listings starting to like come to fruition now around the IPXE timeline. So
Yeah, 100%. And then also one thing I accidentally skipped over, which is kind of cool, and I think we've talked about it on a couple of other protocols, but the Resolve protocol has basically continued to like double down on APX ETH as a collateral in their system. They have this like stablecoin system that has various types of collateral, and they do like some delta neutral magic to make it all work. I don't know exactly how it's designed, but the important thing is that APX ETH is a part of their backing, and it's becoming more and more a part of their backing. I think recently they shared that it's yeah at present APX ETH is around 10% of their TVL. I think they allocated another $1 million to APX ETH recently, and apparently their near term target is to get up to 15%. So hopefully in the future we see more things like this. I think the more APX ETH, and I know we talked about this a lot, but it's worth just doubling down on, the more APX ETH is integrated across these various DeFi protocols in a way that doesn't require any effort from us, the better. And we're seeing this play out very well, not only with Resolve, but with Tokamak, for example, where we have two protocols doing their best to like push PXETH and APX ETH adoption. And if we have protocols doing that, that's less work on us, but more TVL. I mean, we can kind of like spend a lot of our time focusing on going after other verticals like the branded LST vertical or like IPX ETH or whatever else. And so the yield-based plate thesis is in full effect in that regard. I think soon we'll start to see in talks to even increase more. Oh, Vicepacks, are you hoping they increase it to 50%, or are you saying that's a real proposal? Either way. But anyways, like I think over the next couple of months and stuff, as we continue to roll out branded LSTs, you'll see more stuff like this where liquidity sinks for these branded LSTs exist on various chains that we don't really have to spend a ton of time on, and they'll be just consistently growing TVL over time. And I think we see that with like Saiyan ETH, for example, and the Super Saiyan ETH vault that's built by Nucleus. the more they grow, the Super Saiyan ETH vault, the more Saiyan ETH grows as a result of that. And if we continue to do that, that is the yield base plate thesis in full effect. So are we in talks to increase their collateral? I am not. I don't think we are as a whole, mostly because they probably have like limitations on like how much of each type of collateral can be within the system. But if they want to increase it to 50%, then of course we're open to that conversation. Okay, what else do we have? I did see something like a question about Alchemix. So we've been getting a bunch of inbound about potentially like integrating APXETH as like an Alchemix collateral, mostly because they do self-repaying loans, and that repaying comes from the underlying yield of the collateral, and the higher the yield, the faster your loan gets repaid, etc. I think we are in like open conversations with them about that, and I think it's moving along pretty well. So hopefully we'll have something more concrete we could share around Alchemix soon. I mean, we're already relatively close with them because we have the liquidity pools with them between PXETH and ALETH, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll continue to talk with them, and hopefully we can give you guys a sort of more concrete update soon. Alchemix is working on, I think, their V3. So go ahead.
Yeah. They're already in the group chat we're in. They're already scoping it, like listing it as collateral. So because right now the current system only works around like Steth. So like the expansion, hopefully before V3, like includes us and some other assets.
Yeah, it would be dope. IPXETH update. I don't know if Terrence or Sammy, if you guys have any updates you want to give on IPXETH. I will say though, we put out a blog post about IPXETH earlier this week that I think continues to sort of zoom in on what the value prop of IPXETH as a staking solution is. And I won't go over it all here, but go read it. It's pretty good. Terrence and I kind of co-wrote that together and wanted to try to break down like why people may use IPXETH over any other thing that's out there, even though there's not really anything out there that competes with IPXETH directly. There's a couple of, people have talked about like the institutional posts that Lido made a long time ago or whatever else, but those things are not close to being the same type of solution that IPXETH is. Lido doesn't actually have like a technical solution that they're offering institutions or anything like that. They basically are just trying to get the suits to stake with them with like a marketing page, which is not our approach. I don't know what else we can add. Terrence said soon in the chat. Is that all you want to say, Terrence?
Yep, soon. Yeah, I don't want to say anything more, but very soon.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, we've just been making our way through the process. I know it's been like soon for a long time, but we are getting there.
Soon, seriously, through all the red tape that we had to get through.
Yeah, we've been using a machete to hack through all the red tape. It's not been fun, but
a machete and a suit.
Yeah, machete with a suit with the sleeves ripped off. RFF wants first IPXETH is minted. Terrence buys a new mic. Yeah, agree. This guy needs a new mic. I'm sick of it. Cool. Well, we kind of ran through everything pretty fast, so I don't know if there's anything that people want to talk about up here that I may have glossed over, but we've been in the trenches the past couple of weeks. There's a lot of stuff in the pipeline, and so our goal is to try to get that pipeline cleared by the end of the year. As you all know, like as we get into the holiday season over the next month, we want to make sure that we get these partnerships out the door as fast as we can, and we're trying to push people along. A lot of this stuff, like we control as much as we can, and some of it is out of our control. Like for example, when an L2 takes forever to like launch their branded LST or whatever else. And so we're doing everything we can to get this stuff out the door because we want to move fast. We want to get stuff launched. We don't take several weeks off for holidays like some of these bigger teams do, which is unfortunate because that makes them move a lot slower. New L2 partnerships announcement timeline. We will be announcing a handful of them over the next couple of weeks, I imagine. We are literally like so close to having a bunch of them across the finish line before the holidays begin. That's our goal. Move as fast as possible.
But in terms of ones that are like announced and starting to like go live, for example, like Stay, right, is already live, out in production, working. Flare, the Ripple L2, which has been doing pretty good actually, the Flare one. And then Arbitrum with Orbit chain, and then Movement was just one that went over a bit of people's heads because Movement is obviously like well, we announced it like pretty early on in the life cycle. So Movement should be big. And then, just yesterday or the day before, ZK Sync with all the other ZK Sync chains that are like popping up. That one should be really cool because of Paymaster. So we're talking to a few chains on that side of things that can like enable this token to actually be used for like gas on these chains. So there's a world where like, people are just using these tokens, using like the branded LST like for gas on the L2 instead of like actually like using WETH, which makes us like one of the most important assets on a chain. And if just like one of these chains reaches one of these chains with all the ones we have in the pipeline reaches like escape velocity, then we could be talking about like this time next year like $1 billion plus in TVL and the branded LSTs. So it's all pretty exciting.
Yeah, and I think like Strife mentioned, like movement seems like it'll be a big W for us. Yeah, exactly. And I think for a lot of the chains that aren't launched yet that we've secured branded LSTs with, is those are like some of the biggest wins because it means we don't have to come in after the fact to compete with like the LSTs or restaking tokens or whatever that are already there, right? Like if a team is willing to put a lot of weight behind a branded LST early on, we can kind of win on that chain first and be early and get incentives pointed toward it and things like that, which in my opinion is kind of like the best way to go about it.
And actually on that note, like we've been talking with like Stakestone, EtherFi, a lot of these guys that would like be considered, competition. And for a lot of these like upcoming chain launches, for the ones we announced, like for example, like Movement, like they'll be pairing against Move ETH instead of ETH on the DEX LP. So on top of like getting a free ride on TVL from the chains, we also get like the added benefit of like all these people running these points campaigns and stuff like paired against us. So we get like half of the yield on top of it. So yeah.
Yep. Are you going to have to dox to give institutions access to IPXE? Yeah, I mean, yeah, but most of us are actually pretty doxed. Is team aware of some of the upcoming Chainlink stuff and would they use it? I don't know. I also don't know what the upcoming Chainlink stuff is. I think for us, Layer Zero has been an amazing partner. They have the flexibility and the bandwidth to work closely with us on this. They've helped promote a lot of the branded LSTs, and I think, early on in the process, we explored all of our options, and, Layer Zero ended up being the best one for us. And so I think we might just stick with them. That would be my guess.
Yeah. I think a couple of people brought up this Chainlink stuff. The reason we didn't end up going with Chainlink is because there's a 7 bips fee, I believe, in and out using the bridge. And because of like the multi-chain world of like branded LSTs for the retail product, it's just unfeasible, right? People would be incurring that slippage on deposits into the protocol, right? So until I saw some of those Chainlink updates, like until there's, a world in which we can like use them and it's like a better product than Layer Zero, then like we're happy to. But like at the moment, like Layer Zero goes out above and beyond for us, and there's no fees, right? So
yeah,
we're minimal.
Yeah, and Bond God says, "Oh yeah, Layer Zero airdrop was awesome." Yeah, and they gave airdrop, so that's a dub. Let's see, Vicepacks. With regards to Eigenlayer, are we now qualifying for being adopted as we have crossed 100 million TVL? I'm not sure what their latest parameters are. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what their plan is to expand new LSTs.
We talked about this a few weeks ago. The strategy for the restaking, revolves around us actually restaking the validators, which lets PXETH as a whole like utilize restaking yield and the staking yield, rather than forcing users to like restake PXETH once they already have it. So as more branded LCs goes live and stuff, we'll start to like it's hard because all the code we put out, the insurance providers are working with, everyone like is aligned on IPX ETH. Everyone is aligned on one system, and I know people want the restaking stuff, and we have a strategy there. It's just not feasible to like do restaking. Like you can't just like flip a switch and turn restaking on right now because it requires like quite a lot of work on the back end. Nothing to the point where like users would be required to do like a migration, but just a lot of the big like LPs we're working with and IPX ETH partners, it would be like a change in the code, right? So when the time is right, like we will add the restaking stuff. But I think the goal internally right now is to like get the IPX ETH fund live and some more branded LSTs before we like put this like change in front of partners right on the precipice of like these launches and the launches that just happened.
With all the deposits coming into APX ETH from branded LSTs and IPX ETH, how do you intend to keep the staking APR this high? Any new strategy you were thinking of? We're just expecting that people will flock to PX ETH. So, yeah, Sammy kind of answered half of that question with some of the restaking stuff we're working on that'll create a little bit of a better balance between the two. But ultimately, there's going to be like an equilibrium point where the PX ETH yield is just so much higher than APX ETH yield. For example, if they ape way too much into APX ETH, people will see the PX ETH yield being however many multiples higher start to go in that direction, and it'll kind of like there'll be a balance between the two, and ultimately like at a certain size, yield will go down slightly no matter what. And that's just what happens at like huge scale. But I think by the time we get there, nobody will be complaining because TVL will be quite high. Barra airdrop, you said? No, I didn't say that. I've already talked about
I'm
this.
just gonna chime in here as well. I think related to the kind of restaking stuff Sammy was touching on, I think Sammy has touched this on a number of podcasts, but the strategy for scaling the PXE field so that the APX field stays juicy is also to kind of direct all the non-ETH yield opportunities to PXE so that the more involved asset will receive the more diverse yield, whereas the APX field will continue to benefit from that. So by also incorporating restaking and other yield opportunities, that keeps the balance there, as you were saying, Colin.
Yep. Barra ETH. Good tech. Okay, gotta go. Yeah. The Olympus call does start in 3 minutes. So for people who are planning to make both, we'll give 3 more minutes for any more questions we have. If not, we can wrap this thing up just in time. I think we covered a lot of ground. More questions above. How close to turn on PX ETH fees for Dinero stake orders? I don't know, Funky. Do you have a estimation on that? How close we are on the PX ETH fees?
So like we don't give estimates and stuff, but I mean, the thing is, we are close, right? I think a lot of people are making this kind of big deal about the fee switch and whatnot, but the fee switch is already there, and there are various resources already where you can see the amount of fees we've generated and the kind of margins that we expect. Yeah, we are close. I'm not going to give any estimate, but it should be good.
Yeah, that works. Are there more opportunities in the pipeline similar to the Resolve Labs deposit? Yes, actually, we'll probably be announcing one relatively soon. CabFam, I'm not answering those questions. Like,
and
please stop spamming them.
Diad as well, right?
Oh yeah, and Diad. We actually have something really cool coming up with Diad that I think people will be excited about. That's been like a hotbed for APX ETH as collateral. So be sure to pay attention. You'll want to, and make sure you put some TVL into APX ETH that might benefit you.
Also, we have I guess similar to the Resolve partnership, we have a proposal up for Reserve, which is ETH plus, and that would add like 8 million of TVL to APX ETH. So I'll drop the proposal link in there, and it is helpful if our community or people in general show some support so that we can get that incorporated.
Yep. So we're definitely working on that. Like we want as many supply sinks for PX ETH and APX ETH as we can possibly have. So I think we'll probably announce a couple of them in the very near future. We're working on final details. So that's some of the alpha leak. Dyad is coming. Even harder. No Diddy. Okay, cool. Well, I think we're at the 30-minute mark. I want to give people time to join the Olympus call. It seems like there's a lot of buzz around that. Maybe even I'll give it a listen. But thanks for taking the time, everybody, to come hang out. We appreciate it as always, and have a good weekend. Peace.